Welcome back to our YouTube channel. In a moment, you'll embark on an age-old puzzle. Why didn't the Jewish people recognize the Messiah? This hidden truth, a captivating mystery that challenges centuries of belief, awaits you. Are you prepared to delve into the depths of a revelation that could reshape your perception of faith and prophecy? Join us on this enigmatic journey of discovery, where every revealed detail becomes a piece of the divine puzzle. Brace yourself, as the truth about the Messiah and Jewish unbelief is about to be unveiled. When Jesus arrived, he presented undeniable evidence of being the Messiah. He performed miraculous healings, restored hearing to the deaf, enabled the paralyzed to walk, cleansed lepers, and even raised the dead, all witnessed by the Jewish leaders. Moreover, they were well versed in the Old Testament prophecies concerning the expected Messiah. Yet, despite these demonstrations and their knowledge, they rejected Jesus as the Messiah. The question that lingers is why? Today, we will explore several reasons behind the majority of Jewish people's rejection of Jesus as the Messiah. In this video, I will discuss 4 of these reasons. Firstly, there was confusion regarding the Old Testament prophecies about the first and second coming of Jesus. Many messianic prophecies were fulfilled by Jesus during his first coming. These include the characteristics of the Messiah described in Isaiah 11, the prophecy of his birthplace in Micah 5 verse 2, the depiction of his sufferings and death in Isaiah 53, and the precise timing of his arrival mentioned in Daniel 9 verse 27. However, there were other prophecies in the Old Testament that Jesus did not fulfill during his first coming. The Jewish leaders hoped these unfulfilled prophecies would manifest, and when they realized that Jesus didn't meet those specific expectations, they concluded that he couldn't be the Messiah they were awaiting, leading to their rejection of him. The second reason for the Jewish people's rejection of Jesus as the Messiah stems from a misunderstanding of the Old Testament prophecies relating to his first and second coming. While Jesus fulfilled many messianic prophecies during his first coming, the prophets themselves didn't foresee a time gap between the 2 advents of the Messiah. This hidden aspect remained a mystery to them. Consequently, when Jesus didn't fulfill all the messianic actions predicted for his first appearance, they concluded that he couldn't be the Messiah they anticipated. This lack of distinction between the 2 advents led to their rejection of him. The third reason revolves around the perception of Jesus as a blasphemer in the Jewish faith. The central prayer, the Shema, emphasizes the oneness of God and the exclusive worship and love directed towards him. Jesus challenged this perception by addressing themes of worship, service, love, and honor directed at himself. This contradicted what the Jewish people had been taught from an early age. The concept of God incarnating in human form was inconceivable to them. Jesus' claims, such as declaring his pre-existence before Abraham and using the expression, "I am," which referred to the divine name YHWH, deeply offended the religious sensibilities of the Jewish people. They saw it as a blasphemous offense, equating Jesus with God, leading them to reject him. Lastly, the Jewish people expected the Messiah to free them from Roman oppression and establish an earthly kingdom where they would reign and rule. However, Jesus didn't fulfill these expectations during his first coming. He inaugurated a kingdom focused on spiritual blessings rather than material and physical ones. This misunderstood purpose of his kingdom caused the Jewish people to reject him as the Messiah, as they yearned for political liberation rather than spiritual regeneration. Blasphemy, once considered a grave offense punishable by death through stoning, held significant weight in the past. In the Gospel of John, Jesus declares, "I and the Father are one," John 10 verse 30. This statement was understood by the Jews as equating Jesus with God, which was seen as outright blasphemy according to Jewish interpretation. The prayer known as the Shema, a fundamental aspect of Jewish tradition, emphasizes the oneness of God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, Deuteronomy 6 verse 4. Therefore, when Jesus claimed unity with the Father, he seemed to challenge this core belief of Jewish faith, leading people to try to stone him once again. The second reason for rejecting Jesus as the Messiah was the perception that he was committing blasphemy by claiming to be one with God. This contradicted the teachings they had received and practiced. The third reason for the Jewish people's rejection of Jesus related to the challenge he posed to their religious teachings and traditions. Many religious leaders of that time believed that Jesus' teachings contradicted various traditional interpretations and applications of the Mosaic Law. The rabbis, responsible for transmitting and interpreting the laws and traditions of the Old Testament, saw Jesus as a threat to the continuity and authority of their interpretations passed down through generations. Jesus questioned some of the sacred laws and traditions of the Jews, provoking a strong defensive reaction among the religious leaders. They questioned who this man was to propose new interpretations or teachings that differed from their precepts. One example of this can be seen in Matthew 15, where Pharisees and teachers of the law from Jerusalem questioned Jesus about why his disciples didn't follow the ancient tradition of ceremonial hand-washing before eating. Jesus used this opportunity to highlight a deeper issue, emphasizing that external purity, while relevant, was not as crucial as purity of heart. He challenged these religious leaders with a counter-question, pointing out their neglect of caring for and honoring their parents while making financial vows to the temple. Jesus' actions directly challenged the established religious system and traditional interpretations of the law, which contributed to the conflict between him and the religious authorities of the time. In fact, Jesus challenged traditional interpretations of the law by introducing new perspectives on well-established precepts. For example, he expanded the understanding of Sabbath work and emphasized love and prayer for one's enemies, which contrasted with some of the more rigid interpretations of fighting evil in the Old Testament. These teachings were revolutionary at a time when the Jewish people were under Roman oppression and longed for liberation and revenge against their oppressors. One emblematic example of this new approach is found in Mark chapter 2 when Jesus heals a paralyzed man and declares, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Jesus not only demonstrated power over physical ailments but also claimed authority over the forgiveness of sins, a domain considered exclusive to God. This claim was perceived as blasphemous by the religious leaders, who believed that only God could forgive sins and that atonement required a sacrifice performed by a priest following established rituals, such as on Yom Kippur. Jesus' actions and teachings called into question the prevailing religious traditions and interpretations, directly challenging the authority of the religious leaders and the messianic expectations of the time. This contributed to the rejection of Jesus as the Messiah by many Jews. In Leviticus 16, the instructions for the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, are described, which prescribe the only way in the Old Testament for the atonement of sins. It includes specific sacrifices and rituals conducted by the high priest. When Jesus proclaimed that he could forgive sins, as in Mark chapter 2's account of the healing of the paralytic, he directly challenged these established norms. By telling the paralyzed man, "Your sins are forgiven," Jesus not only performed a physical miracle but also made a bold statement about his spiritual authority, something that only God could do. The religious leaders interpreted this statement as blasphemy because, according to their understanding and teaching, forgiveness of sins could only occur through the rituals and sacrifices described in the Mosaic Law. Their reaction was defensive and rejecting because they saw Jesus as a threat to their religious system and authority. This rejection intensified in John 11 with the resurrection of Lazarus. Jesus demonstrated his power over life and death by raising Lazarus from the dead after 4 days, a feat that only God could accomplish. Nevertheless, some Jews hardened their hearts and preferred to deny the obvious rather than recognizing in Jesus the divine presence in action. This hardening of heart in the face of clear signs of the truth reveals the fourth reason why Jesus was rejected as the Messiah: an internal resistance to accepting the truth, even when it manifests itself indisputably. After the miracle of Lazarus' resurrection, the response of the people was divided. While many believed in Jesus upon witnessing this divine act, others rushed to inform the Pharisees about it instead of surrendering to the evidence that Jesus could be the Messiah. They reported the miracle to the religious authorities, who saw Jesus as a threat to their power and influence. In response, the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish council of religious leaders, to discuss the situation. They were concerned that Jesus' growing popularity would lead to a revolt against the Romans, potentially resulting in the loss of their own positions and privileges. During this meeting, the high priest Caiaphas made a statement that encapsulated their mindset: "You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." John 11 verse 50. Caiaphas saw Jesus as a potential troublemaker who needed to be eliminated to maintain the status quo and prevent Roman intervention. This decision to plot against Jesus and eventually have him arrested, tried, and crucified was driven by their fear of losing their power and authority. Thank you for taking the time to engage with our content. If you enjoyed this discussion and found it insightful, we invite you to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. By doing so, you'll stay updated with our latest videos and help us reach more people with valuable information. Your support means a lot to us, and we look forward to